Hang on a sec.
Regular business meeting of the Redmond City Council held on Tuesday, May 7th, 2024, commencing at 7 o'clock p.m. I will call roll, starting with Council President Kritzer.
Here.
Council Vice President Forsyth.
Here.
Councilmember Anderson. Councilmember Fields.
Here.
Councilmember Nueva Camina.
Here.
Councilmember Salahuddin.
Here.
Councilmember Stewart.
Here.
The first item on the agenda is a proclamation for Older Americans Month, and we have some people who are going to join me up here. Come on up. Come on up. As many of you as you want to come up. Come on up. Okay. I'll read the proclamation first, and then we'll... Come on right here. And you right too. Over there, right over here. Over here. There we go. Okay. Are you ready? Whereas May is Older Americans Month, a time for us to recognize and honor the City of Redmond's older adults and their important influence on every facet of American society. And whereas through their wealth of life experience and wisdom, older adults guide our younger generations and carry forward invaluable cultural and historical knowledge. And whereas older Americans improve Redmond through intergenerational relationships, community service, civic engagement, and many other activities. And whereas Redmond benefits when people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds can participate and live independently. And whereas Redmond must ensure that older Americans have the resources and support needed to stay involved in their communities, reflecting our commitment to inclusivity and connectedness. And now, therefore, Angela Burney, Mayor of the City of Redmond, Washington, do hereby proclaim May 2024 as Older Americans Month and call upon all residents to join me in recognizing and celebrating the contributions of our older citizens and promoting programs and activities that foster connection, inclusion, and support for older adults. And with that, we have a few people that are receiving awards tonight, and I also want to just share, in case you missed it, we opened our Senior and Community Center on Friday, opened for regular business today. And so I am so grateful that it opened at the time where we're celebrating Older Americans Month, because if you haven't had a chance, go hang out there. It's a beautiful space with wonderful spaces for our senior community as well. So with that, I'm going to start with one individual who is not here tonight, but she's being awarded, Christine Baumgardner. Christine has been an active participant and volunteer with Redmond Senior Programs for multiple years. She has served as a senior program librarian and has been a great resource in keeping the shelves organized and inviting for our senior participants. Christine has also been leading the Mexican Train Dominoes interest group for many years, and with the philosophy that everyone wins, she has welcomed many to learn the game. Christine is a quiet and invaluable part of Redmond Senior Programs and incredibly deserving of this honor. Thank you, Christine. Our next recipient is here, Miss Pam Madison. Pam has been an active participant and volunteer with Redmond Senior Programs for multiple years. She continues to have a positive impact on our community in many ways, serving on the Senior Advisory Committee, participating as a member of the Redmond 2050 Community Advisory Committee, and working with her local church on volunteering with the Redmond Historical Society. Pam has also volunteered her time helping with the curbside lunch service, supporting environmental sustainability events, and actively helping with the intergenerational gardening program, bringing fresh produce to HopeLink. Pam warmly reaches out to welcome visitors to Redmond and senior programs and is very deserving of this honor. Congratulations, Pam. Our next award is, every year we do an organization and honor them for their work with the city. And today we have two organizations, Aegis Living of Marymore with Rachel Paris. Is Rachel here? And Aegis Living of Redmond with Rebecca Miller. And we have another, Peter is also from Aegis Marymore. Wonderful. Thank you for joining us, Peter. Aegis Living of Marymore and Redmond were selected by our Senior Advisory Committee because of their ongoing sponsorship and involvement in many of our programs. They sponsor the Winter Whimsy shows for past several years, the open house for senior programs in September 2023, desserts for the senior curbside lunch program for the past several years, and workshops and speakers that brought vital information and support to many seniors and families. Rachel and Rebecca and Peter have enthusiastically partnered with Redmond Senior Programs to enhance the lives of seniors in the greater Redmond area. Thank you for your passion for seniors. Okay, we're going to get a picture. What's up? We're going to get a picture. Oh, wait, Sarah's there. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
What's that? The next item on the agenda is a proclamation for Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And we have some staff who will be joining me up here. Staff who will be joining me up here tonight. Come on up. Right in here somewhere. Yeah, stay there. Are you speaking? Cameron's accepting. Okay. So our next item on the agenda is a proclamation for Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Whereas Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, observed each May, is a celebration highlighting the diverse history and cultures of Asians, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders throughout the United States. AANHPI contributions have and continue to impact American life in all aspects, from science and medicine, literature and art, sports and recreation, government and politics, to activism and law. Whereas this commemoration, first known as Asian Pacific American Heritage Week, was signed into law as a joint resolution by President Jimmy Carter in 1978. 12 years later, Congress expanded the observance from a week to a month. In 1992, President George H.W. Bush designated May as Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. In 2009, during the Barack Obama presidential administration, this tribute was renamed Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And on April 30th, 2021, President Joe Biden signed Proclamation 10189, recognizing this month of May as Asian Americans, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Whereas this month of May was selected to acknowledge the first Japanese immigrants to America on May 7th, 1843, and the completion of the first transcontinental railroad in the States by Chinese laborers on May 10th, 1869, also known as Golden Spike Day. Whereas the 2024 AAPI Heritage Month theme is Advancing Leaders Through Innovation, a continuation of the Advancing Leaders series that began in 2021. Now, therefore, I, Angela Burney, Mayor of the City of Redmond, Washington, do hereby proclaim May 2024 as Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and encourage everyone to recognize this month by acknowledging the numerous and long-standing contributions of Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders throughout the history of the United States. And I'm very excited to have so many of our staff here today, and Cameron Zapata is going to accept the proclamation. And I'll read all the names off that are here, so can you each wave? I think I have everybody. Cameron Zapata, Andy Chow, Paul Cho, Alaric Bien, Min Lo, Peter Lau, Amy Tsai, and Uni Yu. Did I miss anyone? And Alaric, you wanted to say a few words?
Yep. Thank you. So thank you, Mary Burney. On behalf of the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander community here in Redmond, we're really honored to accept this proclamation from the city tonight. And as you know, this community is large and very diverse, making up over 40% of our Redmond residents, including groups from India and China and Korea and Philippines, Native Hawaiians, Samoans, Chamorro, Marshallese. There are 40 other countries. I'm not all name them all, but we are newly arrived immigrants, we're American-born folks like me, and others whose families have been in the United States for 5 generations or more. We're also very diverse economically and educationally, despite the stereotype that we're all, pretty much well-to-do and working in the tech sector, which we're not. But there are a number of families in Redmond who struggle every day. They have less education, they work low-wage service jobs, and they really struggle every day to make ends meet. But because of language and cultural barriers, they often don't know that there's help available to them. Because of the support that the city is proud to give to some of our community-based groups like Chinese Information and Service Center and Indian American Community Services, they have places where they can go and receive services now. So thank you for that. And I also want to share that when I started at the city almost 12 years ago, and I was being introduced around City Hall, there were 3 other Asian American staff here. And I was really surprised to realize that I already knew 2 of them from the community. And I just have to give credit to our HR department and their dedicated efforts over the years so that our staff has become much more diverse and more closely represents the community that we serve. We still have a ways to go, but I think that acknowledging and honoring these diverse constituent parts of our community is one part in creating a welcoming community where all have a place and feel that we all belong. So thank you.
And I missed you. Do you want to, I feel like, here. Share your name and tell us what you do for the city since I missed you.
My name is Deepali Zod. I'm a structural engineer and I do building code compliance for city.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I do want to share that this really represents almost every department in our city, and we're so proud that you were able to share this little time with us and very excited about celebrating this month with you. Thank you. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is items from the audience. I have the sign-in sheet for members of the public to speak tonight. When I read your name, you will come up to the podium and have 3 minutes to address the council. Council members generally will not respond to comments or questions directly at the meeting. Members of the public are welcome to email the council anytime at mayorcouncil@redmond.gov. The views stated by members of the public do not represent the opinion of the City of Redmond. And as a reminder, RCW 4217A555 prohibits any public comment during the council meeting in support or opposition of ballot propositions, measures, or candidates. Written comment has been distributed to the council, and there is 1 person signed up to speak remotely. And we have 22 people signed up for in-person. Usually what I do is I read out about 4 names at a time, so you know when you're up next. We'll start with Hank Myers, then Ernest Dennis LaRoque, then Tarini Krishna, then Amandine Dennis LaRoque.
Good evening. I was happy to hear the proclamation praising the wisdom of older Americans, so let me share a few pearls with you. First, the blank screen, which is not really blank, but has bothered me for some time. Recently, I was told that when the new and improved AV system was installed, there was concern that attaching somebody's flash drive would corrupt your systems. Now, I've heard that there are several software developers in Redmond with expertise in security. You might want to give them a call. Worst case, reinstall the old, outdated system that never had a security problem. The blank screen and reduced time limit are simply an example of how much you really want to hear and see what your constituents say. We are not your adversaries and could be your supporters if you did things openly and in the sunshine. In regard to the Plymouth In regard to the Plymouth Housing Project, we are now hearing, relax, the project still has to go through the Planning Commission. 12 years of experience tells me that a bad idea doesn't get any better by going through the Planning Commission. To the issue at hand, repression of speech, last public meeting, I told you the new regulations are unnecessary and unbecoming of this council. The limits express your distrust and fear of the people who make city government work and volunteering. I understand that things are a lot more polarized now than they were 40 years ago, when Republican President Ronald Reagan said, "A person who agrees with you 80% of the time is a friend and an ally, not a 20% traitor." It was nice having a big tent party until the Red Hats screwed it up. A teacher once told me that when I point a finger at somebody, three more are pointing back at me. Anything you impose on your constituents will be held against you even more vehemently. This is not middle school student council where all you have to worry about is being all nicey nice to each other and sucking up to the principal. If you want to talk about hate speech, 4 years ago, I was at this podium and called a tired old white man by a member of the council. I was deeply hurt and offended. I am not tired. Rather than ask 70,000 constituents not to be interested, involved, and passionate about the city they live in and support with their taxes, perhaps the 7 of you could learn could learn perspective, patience, and understanding, just as your police officers and firefighters do every hour of the day. And doing city business and openly in the sunshine would help too. Thank you. I didn't have a copy of the speech, I just left you a cartoon.
Next, we have Ernest Dennis LaRoque. For those that haven't been here before, we don't allow applause or cheer or booing or anything like that in the council chambers. Next, we have Ernest Dennis LaRoque, then Tarini Krishna, then Amandine Dennis LaRoque, then Vincent Dennis LaRoque.
Dear City Council, my name is Ernest, I'm 12, and I'm in 6th grade at Redmond Middle School. I lived in Redmond since I was 6 and attended school at Redmond Elementary School from 1st to 5th grade. Today, I decided to speak because I'm upset about this plan that you have to open a building just across the street of Anderson Park to give housing to homeless people. We stopped going to Seattle several years ago because I was scared and did not feel safe walking downtown Seattle. I'm afraid that having this kind of housing facility will bring the same kind of weird people in Redmond. From what I understood, you're not even committing to strictly forbid drugs in this place. It seems crazy to me. To be honest, I already do not go by myself downtown Redmond because it's kind of lame when compared to Totem Lake Village or Bellevue Square. But if you go ahead with this project, it's going to get even worse and Redmond will not only be lame, but it will also be unsafe. That's all I have to say. I know you're not willing to listen to most people so far. I hope you will at least listen to the younger generation. Thank you.
Next, we have Tarini Krishna, then Amandine Dennis LaRoque, then Vincent Dennis LaRoque, then Deb Young.
Good evening, members of the council. My name is Tarini Krishna, and I've lived in Redmond for my entire life. I'm 16 years old, and I currently attend the Cambridge program at Juanita High School. In this city, I've always felt extremely safe. I've felt safe enough to walk with my family, safe enough to walk with my friends, and safe enough to walk alone. In the past 16 years, I've never felt unsafe in Redmond and never encountered a dangerous situation. However, I think with this supportive housing project, that will all change. I have a question for everyone here. How are we as a community ensured that we will not face danger and drugs on the street? How are the young children in our community guaranteed safety? This supportive housing project is being developed near Anderson Park. I remember as a kid, my parents would bring me to Anderson Park to play. I still remember swinging on the swings with my friends and playing fun games that brought me joy. Every day, there are numerous kids like this who enjoy playing at Anderson Park and making memories that last them a lifetime. Council members, how can you guarantee the safety of these kids? How can you guarantee that they will be creating positive memories, not negative ones? By allowing this project, you are responsible for every potential incident that could occur. I understand that not every single person who will reside in that building uses drugs. However, I can guarantee that at least one of them does. According to the NIH, a group of currently and formerly homeless individuals were surveyed, and it was found out that 1/3 of these individuals used illicit drugs in the past 3 months. The most commonly used illicit drugs were cannabis, which accounted for 19%, cocaine, which accounted for 16%, and opioids, which accounted for 7.5%. In addition, over 59% of the respondents had defined moderate or high-risk substance abuse. Let this sink in. Think about the drugs that could be passed on the streets. Think about how this could be a magnet for crime. Think about how this could affect our youth. Parents out there, how many of you would want your child to get their hands on any drugs? Hopefully the answer is none of you. How are we guaranteed that these drugs are going to remain off the street? How are we guaranteed that crime is not going to escalate? I'm against the permanent housing project. I'm against it because, to be quite frank, I'm scared for our community. I love Redmond. I take pride in living in Redmond. Redmond is my home. And all I wish for is for my home to continue to remain safe. Thank you.
Next, we have Amandine Dennis LaRoque, then Vincent Dennis LaRoque, then Deb Young, then Kathy Lambert.
Good evening, members of the council. My name is Amandine, and I am a student in the city of Redmond and went to Redmond Elementary School, Redmond Middle School, and I'm currently attending Redmond High School as a sophomore. My parents, like many people, chose to call Redmond our home because it was a welcoming and friendly environment for families. We cannot say the same today. The Permanent Supportive Housing Project is a project that will not be regulated enough, causing it to endanger safety in Redmond. Since the City of Redmond and Plymouth Housing are refusing to confirm that drug usage will be strictly prohibited in this facility, we can only assume that many people doing drugs will be residing here with lots of kids nearby, considering that Anderson Park and Redmond Elementary are just minutes away. Already, at school, I sadly see drug usage almost daily. What do you think will happen if more potential drug dealers or addicts are given home in downtown Redmond? Drug users typically also bring drug dealers. Not only will Redmond Elementary, which is located nearby, be impacted, but Redmond schools in general as well. According to your website, under What Are Council's Priorities, your mission is listed, and it states the following: to collectively deliver our community's priorities in support of a dynamic community where we can all live, work, play, and invest. I would like you to take the time to think about how this decision contradicts your mission. Today, I already stopped going to Redmond Town Center to live or play, like you say. I go to Totem Lake or Bellevue due to safety issues here. I can't wait to have my driver's license so that I don't have to depend on my parents to drive me places. If Redmond was different and safer, this wouldn't be a problem for me. I can only imagine things getting worse if you go forward with this plan. I cannot safely live or play in Redmond now, which doesn't give me the willingness to invest here either in the future. On the same page in your website, there are multiple programs listed, including housing, environmental sustainability, technology, cultural inclusion, and more. There is one component that each of these have in common. In most of these programs, in the council's vision, the word safety is repeated. What is your definition of safety? I do not see any safety in the plan you want to implement. To finish, I am asking you to please rethink your decision. This decision will impact the current population of Redmond as well as the future. If you're not willing to rethink your decision for the current generation, rethink it for the safety of the next generation. Thank you.
Next, we have Vincent Dennis LaRoque, and then Deb Young, then Kathy Lambert, then, I'll figure out that name.
Good evening. Dear council members, I heard about the proposal of changes to the council rules of procedures. That was discussed first on April 9th, I believe, and last week or 2 weeks ago, you had further discussion and decided to put that to a vote, if I understood. We, the people of Redmond, demand democracy. Every Redmond resident deserves the opportunity to voice their thoughts, concerns, and ideas during public meetings. Limiting this fundamental right undermines the very essence of democracy. I believe most of you are members, or at least were endorsed by the Democratic Party. How dare you propose anything that would limit or prevent our freedom of speech? To me, it seems your vision of democracy is the same as in the former German Democratic Republic. You are Democrats in name only. Please, prove me wrong.
Next, I really ask the council chambers to be quiet. Next, we have Deb Young, Kathy Lambert, and then I can't read the first name, but their phone number ends in 4234. And then Jim Holcomb.
Is it okay?
Just a moment, well, the timer's almost up. Hang on a moment. There we
Is
go.
it okay to speak?
Yeah, please go ahead.
All righty. Well, I don't know where I start. There's so much emotion and so much passion. These kids are wonderful, and I celebrate what they have to say, and I hope that you do too, and I hope that you listen. These little gals graduated the school that I did, Redmond High. What they have to say, you need to listen to, please. Does the name Mike Matzik mean anything to you? He's the guy that died, OD'd in the Seattle Plymouth housing. There was no drug treatment. They took him out on a stretcher. He was trying to reach out. He was trying to help others. It never happened. It never happened because he had no mandatory drug treatment. Medically, you cannot believe that anyone is going to benefit from a no drug treatment facility here in Redmond. It doesn't happen. You cannot be a member of society and progress with your own life if you have no treatment that is in place to help you get there. As a nurse, it is unthinkable to me that you would allow no drug treatment in Redmond. And I just want to say, do not take our rights away to speak. We love our town. The only reason I'm here is because I love my town. And I'm going to hold you to your word. Everybody else was, you've broken our trust. It's time to regain the trust back and focus less on telling us we have limited rights to speak. That's all I got to say.
Next we have Kathy Lambert, and then last name starts with D. I can't read your name, but your phone number ends in 4234. And then Jim Holcomb, and then Pavel Chikolov. Kathy, you're signed up 3 times. You're just going once.
Only one of me.
Did you
yes.
ask other people to sign up for you? Is that?
Well, I signed up and then I moved an arrow.
Okay, well, but your name was up here. Like
I must have good friends.
You must have good friends. Okay, I will make sure I cross you off. Great, thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. Well, welcome. First of all, I want to talk about the importance of trust. As an elected official, it's really important you have the trust of the people who elected you. And what's been going on has really eroded a lot of trust in this community. There are 31 people here tonight that I think would much rather have lemonade on the back porch in this beautiful weather than being here to say, don't take our rights away from us. It's important that you know that setting a tone that is respectful sets the atmosphere where you don't have to make rules that are this draconian. You do not need to make laws to limit a person's freedom of speech, and that is a right. And you should not make it so that you are focusing on a very small measure of people when that denies the main group of the community their right to speak. There is one person that I know that many legislative bodies have dealt with and has been banned from almost every legislative body without these draconian rules. 1 minute is not enough to share an idea. Your shining time should be at least a little bit longer than 7 o'clock. The idea of straying from city business is quite disconcerting. Whatever happens here is citizen business. So whatever a citizen wants to talk about, they're paying for this body, and it should be up to them to decide what they want to talk about. Having a council member be able to decide that somebody's speech should be terminated is screening a speech and gagging people from saying what they need to say. Deciding that somebody could be taken out from 4 weeks to 6 months is way too long. Deb mentioned about Mike and dying. It's important that the contracts are very clear that we will not have a no barrier. We also need to make sure that homeless people have cars and that there be a place to put them. Trying to make it cost effective by saying there'll be minimal parking only makes it worse for the people that are in this community already. The Redmond Silver Cloud has 140 parking spaces, and so you need to take that into account. The youth speakers who spoke tonight were articulate. Safety is vital to the quality of life. That's why we moved here, and that's why I want to stay here. But there are many people who have left because the quality of life has gone down in this community. Bill Hobson, who was the founder of Housing First, he and I were very good friends, and he did believe that not only do you have to give housing, but you have to give them treatment. I used to work across the street from one of the projects, and there were so many ambulances and police cars going there on a daily basis, and we could watch out the window as bodies were taken out on a regular basis. People die when they don't have services, and so you have to make sure that whatever happens here, it's well-researched and that they have the ability to get services. Thank you.
Next, we have, you're going to tell me your name so I can,
Maybe I'm known as 4234.
yeah, what's your
Well,
name?
my full name is Chuck Dermody.
Chuck, thank you so much, Chuck.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I believe that the measure to restrict public comment is unnecessary and unwise. I believe this measure arises out of public reaction to an urgent matter of public policy, which council approved without seeking adequate public comment. I believe it is incumbent upon government to educate the public on the need for its actions and for members of government to be teachable as well. Responsible government guides the public toward unity. More discussion earlier could have avoided the current division. If I had had the opportunity, one thing I would have said, making it comfortable and safe for people to remain in their addiction is death on an installment plan. Amy Winehouse sang, she didn't want to go to rehab. She said, no, no, no. Amy is dead, dead, dead because she wouldn't go, go, go. The proposed measure is anti-democratic and defensive in its nature. I respectfully urge the council to reject this anti-democratic measure. Thank you.
Next, we have Jim Holcomb, then Pavel Chikularev, then David Haynes, then Sage Lucas.
Thank you, Mayor Bernie. My name is Jim Holcomb. I'm a retired police officer. I moved here to Redmond in 2021 to get away from what I see happening here. And I want to share with you what it's like to be a police officer working in an area when you have a housing nest of people with type B disabilities. But first I want to differentiate type A from B. Type A disabilities are those of people that are medically encumbered, or they don't see well, or they have some sort of physical disabilities. And type B are those that endanger other people. People who have drug problems, people who have mental issues, people who have sex urges and things of this nature, they're a danger to other people. And such was the case with a guy by the name of Kevin Lee Graff. In June of 2004, Graff was known to us on the police department as a recovering drug-dependent individual with nondescript mental issues, but never any history of violence. Still, Graff, in a self-induced meth binge, one evening walked into an unlocked front door of a random house in Hollywood Division, armed himself with kitchen knives and a meat cleaver from the victim's kitchen, and went directly to the victim's bedroom and immediately and furiously attacked him. He beheaded Robert Lees, who was bedridden, by the way. After he did that, Graff took Lee's severed head over the back fence to another house where he entered a ground floor window and immediately attacked 96-year-old Morley Ingleton, who was on the phone making airline reservations with Southwest Airlines. We got a 911 call from a reservations agent, and we arrived 9 minutes after that 911 call. When we got there, we had to kick the front door in, and Mr. Ingleton was deceased. He was naked from the waist down. He'd been sexually mutilated, and we discovered a keychain in one of the doorways, which happened to identify Graff as a suspect. We located Graff the next day at a Greyhound bus terminal and arrested him. Surprisingly, he had absolutely no connection whatsoever with the victims, didn't know who they were, had no idea what had happened, but he had had a momentary leave from reality. He had a psychosis. This is a type of people that you're going to have in this building, and they are a potential danger to your community, and you need to be aware of it. Your police officers are going to be having in-custody deaths, because when we contact these people and we try to extricate them, take them out, we're going to be calling on the fire department over there to hopefully give them some Versed to calm them down. Otherwise, all these problems are going to go on, and they're not going to go away. And you're going to have them all in one spot right in the middle of your beautiful town, and it's a shame.
Next, we have Pavel Chikolov, David Haynes, Sage Lucas, Kim DeLeon.
Dear council members, mayor, I'm very sad to hear one thing from the council one day and then doing the opposite, waiting today to potentially stifle public comments. Please show us data that anything needs to be done at all. The last 3 sessions were probably one of the largest, and everything was orderly, polite, and respectful. Recordings are all available for everybody. Please show us data that anything needs to be changed at all. Please do not vote until you see the data to back this change. If you hear from public something that you don't like, it's not a good reason to stifle public comments. The public giving you feedback that Plymouth project approval was done hastily and not respectful to the public. Now public providing necessary checks and balances to correct the mistake. In all previous meetings, all the people who were pro-Plymouth housing spoke generic things, and who were against spoke detailed and worrying problems you seem to continue to ignore. We all want to help homeless people, but details matter. As sadly predicted, it happened again. A Plymouth, Seattle resident, Mike Matzik, passed away a week ago, allegedly due to overdose. Plymouth was not there to help him. They thought their help is done when they provided housing, but it's just the beginning. Many of those people need more than that. Do we want the same happen in Redmond? Do we want Redmond to be just like Seattle downtown? I'm not sure. We need to help homeless, but Plymouth is just wrong choice. Council members, please be strong and rescind this project and start from scratch. Lastly, think of your political career following this bad decision. And the very last thing, rhetorical question about clapping. You were all happy when we had proclamations. However, for some reason, we don't want the same happen for the public comments. Thank you.
Next, we have David Haynes, and then Sage Lucas, then Kim DeLeon, and then Yun Gao, I think.
Hi, my name is David Haynes. Ever since I've lived in Estera Park in Overlake, crime has gotten ridiculous, and we get the same political excuses from the police, where the police chief and the 911 dispatch are purposely exempting crimes from being reported as a crime on the statistics so that the police chief can mislead council in the community about overall crime being down. And some of the crimes that are not being listed are directly correlated to the violent crime increases from drug-pushing evil predators and the traffickers who are rivalingly, territorially pissing in the neighborhood, while the cops want to harass me trying to cross 152nd to get to the grocery store because they have an abusive construction site from Public Works that doesn't want to keep a public-private partnership honest. And the thing that should bring the FBI into this is the weaponizing of the rules and the willingness of this city council's leadership to capitulate the integrity of an independent, true democracy to copycat and fill in the blanks of Seattle's progressive, bottom-of-the-barrel, racist woke policies that exempt evil, low-level drug pushers from jail and then prioritize repeat offenders for the housing and services first. And you're watering down the integrity of the building codes to assist with Plymouth Housing Group. You gave Plymouth Housing Group the authorization because the progressives know that when you give $40 million to Plymouth, they finance a re-election apparatus for the progressives who water down the integrity of the oversight of the regulations of that development to allow them to build a modern third world slum that causes mental crisis and creates bad policies to trade the integrity of government for re-election support for personal power-mongering gain. And you all should reconsider your capitulation to the police chief and find somebody who's not tainted with George Soros police reform and find a crime-fighting cop to trespass all these junky thieves roaming around stealing everything that are connected to the underworld who were conducting uncivil war on community, pushing illicit drugs, crack, meth, heroin, and fentanyl at the bus stop, blowing it in kids' faces. Cops from Metro to Redmond and Bellevue argue somebody else is responsible for it, and they keep saying that the judges are going to release them and the prosecutors are not going to prosecute. And you all keep putting up with a police chief who's going along with easy overtime payday, playing politics, instead of making it safer and keeping businesses that come in here and speculate housing honest about the integrity of the building codes so that it's actually 21st century first world quality and not more modern third world slums on the side of the highway with a inconvenient train that needs noise abatement walls wrapped around it to quiet it down, and maybe higher walls to tone down the roar of the 520 highway that people are not supposed to listen to when they're living here.
Next, we have Sage Lucas, then Kim DeLeon, then Yin Gao, then Nick Strathy.
Hello, my name is Sage Lucas. I honestly wasn't expecting to speak tonight. I received a text message from a friend last minute about what was going to be spoken about this evening. I'm actually somebody who deals with agoraphobia, so I don't come out of the house very often unless I very heavily self-regulate. I do a lot of community work, and in that community work, I have to do a lot of self-regulation before I show up on the stage to do so. But when I found out that we would have rights of freedom of speech possibly taken away and limited, I knew I needed to come and share my voice with you with how important it is, because it takes more than a minute to explain something. 3 minutes is already hard enough to try to get your point across. People need their voice to speak. They should not be limited to do so. I'm also an individual who lives in affordable housing here in Redmond, and I'm absolutely grateful for the opportunities that have been given for me to grow as an individual who came from Los Angeles that was in fight or flight mode every day of my life. To come somewhere where I had safety and be okay was great. And I see things happening here based off of decisions that are being made that are reminding me of a place I don't like to be and a place I left for a reason, because this was a space I came for safety. I've had my family come here and I've seen change happen deeply in a lot of family members because of the opportunities that are given with the right barriers to show somebody their worthiness and hold them accountable so that way they can move forward and grow and be in this place. But having some place like Plymouth is also not going to help us without those types of right restrictions and barriers. Let's keep Redmond safe and not go backwards. We're trying to go 2050 into a city. Let's do something different than other cities have done before.
Next, we have Kim DeLeon, then Yin Gao, then Nick Strathy, then David Morton.
Good evening, members of the City Council. I stand before you today deeply concerned about the proposed changes to our public comment system, limiting public comments to an unspecified time frame and restricting topics to only those pre-identified undermine our right to free speech and engagement in local governance. Furthermore, the proposal to allow council members to terminate public comments and exclude individuals from meeting is alarming. It stifles community voices and diminishes transparency in decision-making, which is a big process between all of these things. Additionally, the prohibition on clapping and cheering during public discourse is a violation of our right to express support or dissent. It suppresses civic engagement and undermines the spirit of democracy. On another note, while the initiative for new housing options is commendable, there are reservations about the lack of support for residents' long-term stability. We must prioritize holistic solutions that empower individuals to overcome housing challenges rather than simply providing temporary relief. Furthermore, concerns about police intimidation at our community events and insufficient assistance in obtaining event permits persist. So these would be really great things to also keep up, because a lot of us in the community like to create safe and inclusive events for our community members, and that has been a challenge. In conclusion, I urge the council to reconsider these proposed changes and prioritize policies that foster inclusivity, transparency, and empowerment into our community. Thank you.
Next, we have David Morton, then Brent Summer, then Jennifer Cook.
Good evening, council members and mayor. I'm David Morton. The Redmond benefits significantly from the state's Growth Management Act, or GMA, and the Climate Commitment Act, or CCA. These legislative frameworks provide a foundation for sustainable growth and environmental stewardship that's crucial for balanced development and climate resilience. The GMA, enacted in 1990, curbs urban sprawl, preserves natural resources, and fosters efficient land use planning. Redmond leverages the GMA to promote compact development, encourage mixed land use, and preserve green spaces. By concentrating growth within urban growth boundaries, Redmond fosters vibrant communities, reduces infrastructure costs, and protects its lush surroundings. Redmond also actively embraces the principles of the CCA, a landmark legislation passed in 2021 to combat climate change. The CCA mandates significant reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, setting ambitious targets for transportation, industry, and buildings. Redmond aligns its policies with the CCA, fostering sustainable transportation alternatives, promoting energy-efficient buildings, and investing in renewable energy sources. By doing so, Redmond mitigates its carbon footprint and enhances its resilience to climate impacts like extreme weather events and sea level rise. The benefits of these acts are multifaceted. They promote economic vitality by attracting businesses committed to sustainability and innovation. They also enhance public health by reducing air pollution and promoting active lifestyles through walkable neighborhoods and green spaces. They safeguard the natural beauty of the region and ensure that future generations can enjoy the pristine landscapes and biodiversity of the area. Repealing the Climate Commitment Act would create uncertainty for Redmond's future. Without this critical legislation, Redmond might lose its momentum in combating climate change, jeopardizing its efforts to reduce emissions, transition to clean energy, and build climate-resilient infrastructure. The repeal could undermine Redmond's reputation as a forward-thinking, environmentally conscious city and potentially deter businesses and residents from seeking sustainable living opportunities. In conclusion, the Growth Management Act and the Climate Commitment Act are indispensable pillars supporting Redmond's journey towards sustainable development and climate resilience. By upholding these legislative frameworks, Redmond secures its prosperity and reaffirms its commitment to preserving the environment and fostering a high quality of life for current and future residents. Thank you.
Next, we have Yin Gao and Nick Strathy, then Brent Summer, then Jennifer Cook. Yin Gao, thank you.
Hi, my name is Yin Gu. It should be Gu, not Gao. Sorry, it's okay. And hi, all the council member. This is my first time in this meeting. I've lived in Redmond since 1995, so it's almost 30 years. So I love this city and I love the environment. So when last week I was caught by this news, what are you going to do in the downtown Redmond? I was in shock. I was like, this is just out of mind. Like, why you allowed things like that doing this? It's so obvious to. Well, of course, I do have empathy for those homeless people. And my son even mentioned that to me, say, oh, they need a place to stay. I said, yeah, but I'm sure you can find, maybe we should work harder to find a better alternative for this. This is definitely won't work. And, just put a shelter in the middle of the town, without checking any, background and no, I think that definitely won't work. So, my point is I love this city. Please keep the city safe, and you have our trust. And please just be responsible for it and keep our trust. Thank you.
Next, we have, Nick Strathy, then Brent Summer, then Jennifer Cook, then Joe Kunzler.
Hi, I'm Nick Strathy. I'm here to voice opposition to the Council's proposal to infringe in any way on free speech of the public at City Hall meetings by arrogating to itself the right to set arbitrary changeable time limits on public comments, restricting subject matter, banning speakers from future meetings, banning spontaneous clapping for public comments. With all due respect, this is America, where city councils serve we the people, not the other way around. With all due respect, this is not your council, you are our council. There are already adequate restrictions on free speech in the criminal code without you adding additional restrictions. No doubt these restrictions are being proposed in response to the public outcry against the city's unilateral actions on Redmond homeless shelters. The public are not willing to have their city turned into another Seattle or San Francisco by building another Housing First homeless shelter across from a children's playground. The Plymouth Housing Low Barrier Plan will serve mainly to enrich the homeless homeless industry and will not benefit either the homeless or other Redmond residents. Housing First shelters for homeless have been proven failures as drug addicts are isolated and drug themselves to death while endangering other residents and trashing the surrounding environment. For this reason, any granting of residency in homeless housing must be contingent on regular drug testing. Additionally, adequate parking must be provided at any such housing, as people in need of assistance should not be restricted to persons without a car. Already, I know a merchant who runs her business by herself a block from City Hall and has to keep the door locked during business hours as homeless people walk in and demand to use the bathroom or ask for free coffee. She does not feel safe. This will only grow worse with the addition of a Housing First residence. Thank you.
Next, we have Brent Summer, then Jennifer Cook, then Joe Kunzler, then Alex Zimmerman.
Yeah, the First Amendment is only made possible by the Second Amendment. The homeless industrial charity business is a racket. Every non-governmental organization takes a cut of the money allotted to fix a problem that we are going about all wrong. The Plymouth Housing First model warehouses homeless drug addicts alone in housing with no strings attached. You don't have to be clean or sober. You don't have to be enrolled in a drug treatment program. There's no accountability, structure, or discipline at all. In many cases, the residents are not getting better, and at times overdosing and dying in their rooms. Plymouth Housing hands out pipes and needles to its tenants, while the Salvation Army bans illicit drug use in its buildings. It is obvious that Plymouth Housing is not in the best interest of the vulnerable homeless population and the city of Redmond. Council members clearly violated their fiduciary duty when they have not taken adequate time to consider as the council the outcomes of what this would look like, yet rushed without allowing a decent amount of public input to approve the transfer of public land to a private entity for the development of a low-barrier homeless building in the heart of Redmond, only half a mile away from Redmond Elementary School. People that live in Plymouth housing are able to get high and go right out and drive a car under the influence. There is more to fixing the homeless problem than throwing money at it. Every non-governmental organization takes a cut of the money allotted to fix the problem that we are going about all wrong. The homeless industrial business is a gangster's racket. We need real solutions, not leftist stunts that make their friends look rich.
Next, we have Jennifer Cook, then Joe Kunzler, then Alex Zimmerman.
Good evening, Council. My name is Jennifer Cook. I'm a resident of Redmond, and I'm also staff of Leadership Eastside. And I just want to take a minute to thank the Council for the work that you do. It is difficult, it's challenging, it's messy, and it's often thankless. I also wanted to thank the Council for the support of Leadership Eastside and our dedication to equipping leaders with the tools needed to address the complex issues that we are facing in our community today. We need to equip more leaders who can tackle these complex adaptive issues, and your support will provide more opportunities in our community to do so. So thank you.
Next is Joe Kunzler, then Alex Zimmerman.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm trying to call up my speech on this thing. Come on, hurry up, damn it, I'm on the clock. I want to thank the Redmond Council for standing up to true hate with proposed public confidence defenses, especially as I was the first drafter of the 2022 ESHB 1329, which renovated the Open Public Meetings Act. Also, as Max, whose last name I can't pronounce, of the JCRC wrote you today, quote, "We commend you for taking meaningful steps towards protecting our communities by ensuring public comments are free from hate, harassment, obscenities, and other derogatory language," end quote. I acknowledge Safe Eastside's concerns about these proposed defenses, and well, you got your 3 minutes back, so congratulations. But enough is enough of the outsider abuse of Redmond citizens and Redmond democracy. Bellevue's Alex Zimmerman has abused both Redmond and Bellevue with his Nazism and mockery of Judaism and democracy. Ergo, we must arm Redmond now against the City Council Death Squad, an anti-Semitic terror group, weaponizing public comment nationwide. And yes, I monitor that group because they're undoing all the work I did to bring in remote testimony. So here's what these defenses in 24-064 actually do. They require public comments funded by the Redmond taxpayers to be about City of Redmond business only. That's a de facto hate speech ban. They prevent an incitement of hate, and they ban repeat violators from the Redmond airspace. That's all they're going to do. And they're good work. It's good work by this council vice president, by this council president, and yes, the mayor and Sound Transit board member. I want to quote Santa Marin to you because I see a lot of Santa Marin in your council president. Quote, "We shouldn't base our decisions on fear or what might have come. I think we have to do what is right. When you do what is right, I think that pays off eventually," end quote. I believe summoning forth the courage to stand up to anti-Semitic outsider hate will pay off. So I quote Zelensky to you, whose shirt I wear. Quote, "Whoever uses terror commits a crime against the world. Whoever sponsors terror commits a crime against the world," end quote. What Zimmerman and the City Council squad have been doing here is a crime against humanity, and it must stop. And these defenses will defend Redmond and restore Redmond values for Redmond residents. I commend the resolution. Thank you for your public service.
Next, we have Alex Zimmerman. And we have one remote testimony tonight, Paul Quinn.
That's Paul.
Hi, Mr. Quinn. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Very good. All right. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Paul Quinn, and I live in Sammamish. I'm speaking to you as an individual that cares about recycling and composting and reducing what we send to the landfill. Let's start with a reminder you've heard from me before that from the King County survey of trash sent to landfill, which showed that 2/3 of what is sent to the landfill can be either recycled or composted. So two-thirds of our trash is actually not trash. I've emailed you 3 handouts. The first handout reflects disposal numbers updated now year-to-date March. And before I begin with that, let me clarify that diversion rates means that a percentage of disposed tonnage diverted away from the landfill and to recycling and food scraps composting. And now back to that handout. As you can see in Table 3, our diversion rate is flat in the first quarter this year versus last year's first quarter. And as important, Redmond's diversion rate has been declining since 2021. The city needs a new approach to improve diversion, and tonight I have a proposal that will do just that. King County is offering grants right now for innovative recycling and composting projects. I have provided you with a handout that has a completed grant application proposal to provide smart disposal to a city to be named. Let's make that city Redmond. I need a city partner to apply for this grant with me, and then we can provide single-family residents with direct personal feedback and education based on their own disposal habits. Let me tell you what smart disposal is. Smart disposal weighs each container emptied by the hauler for each single-family home. This system, through a postcard mailed to each resident, will provide data specific to their address, including a landfill diversion rate per pickup and a trend line over time, and a comparison to a group of neighbors. I provided an example postcard as a separate handout. This system helps us move from a toss and forget mindset toward making better choices. We all know that feedback through measurement works because our water, electricity, and gas are all metered, helping us to moderate our use. Smart disposal effectively meters our actual use of the disposal utility. During the pilot, the city will bear no cost, as the completed grant request will cover all costs. The city of Redmond and its hauler will be my partners on this project. This grant partnership request has urgency, as the King County grant application must be submitted by May 29th. Join me with smart disposal, and let's get our diversion rate moving in the right direction. And in closing, I hadn't planned to say this when I started my remarks. You are a courageous city council. I am so proud to see you let people speak and for you to listen. I'm so proud of you. You're terrific. Thank you.
We had one person signed up to speak and wasn't in the room, but is now back in the room. So, Mr. Zimmerman, you have 3 minutes to address the council. It's your turn.
Damn Nazi fascist junta. Guys, my name is Alex Zimmerman, President of Stand Up America. I want to speak about something that was absolutely critical. Yesterday, I was in Bellevue conference, what is make plan for 20 years, from 24 to 44, make a plan. So my question to them very interesting, because this looked to me absolutely stupid, and I explain to you why. 20 years before, similar situation. And where does this plan come from? From Olympia. Why are they doing this? I see before from Soviet Union communists, they brainwash people and talk 20 years from now we will be in communism. We have absolutely identical situation here. Why is this crooked Democrat mafia, a junta, doing this 20-year plan? Huh? Yeah, plan, we have a plan. So 20 years from now, they will be controllers like controlled 20 years before. You understand about what I'm talking, guys? It's a serious problem. We need to finish with Democrat mafia, with Democrat fascism, what is happening right now. It is very important, because 20 years from now, nothing will be happen what is in this plan. Everybody knows this trick. You understand what it means? Why I come to you in talking? Because you exactly same. You're not a different. We have chance right now. This year are critical. Or we bring America back, you know what it means? Make America great again, or for another 10, 20, maximum 30 years, America will be vaporized. With speed what is we have for last 4 years under Democrat mafia, in state Washington, in country, another 4 years, that's it. Finita la commedia, that's it. We cannot afford this. 80% of people cannot afford living right now. Look statistic, what is price jump for last 4 years. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. It's a 3-4 times. It's a serious problem what is we have. Look rent, look housing, everything. We go by this Democrat mafia who together with corporation control us. You know what it means? Because fascism is a classic fascism. Mussolini talked this 100 years ago. It's government together with corporation suck blood and money from the people. It's not mirror what has happened. When we don't stop in this, you, Bellevue, Redmond, Kirkland, Issaquah, Mersley Island, when we don't stop in this, and I live here for 40 years, another, probably cannot live so long. Another few years will be a nightmare. Only one chance right now to stop in this Democrat mafia, you know what it means, Democrat fascism. It's only one chance for everybody. So it not matter who you are, Democrat, Republican, Independent, or idiot. Thinking,
Your time is
common
up.
sense.
Mr. Zimmerman.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Next, we have items from the audience. Items from the audience is now closed. Our next item of business is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any items to be pulled? Councilmember Anderson?
Pull item number 8, please.
8. Okay. Item number 8, so I will not read that one into the record. Any other items to be pulled? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote, starting with Council President Kritzer.
Aye.
Council Vice President?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Aye.
Item number 8, Councilmember Anderson, would you like to move the item?
Sure.
Move item number 8.
Move item number 8.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Would you like to speak to the item, Councilmember?
I'm not in support of this item, just because I think the details didn't get ironed out all the way. Specifically, I am concerned of moving the number of members of the commission from 5 to 7, because we did not discuss how to break a tie. And then I think there's a couple other items that are just not quite where they need to be to correct a problem that happened last year. I feel I am supportive and very grateful for the work that staff put into this to try to piece together what council was thinking on this matter. And I think also it might be interesting to have a conversation about adding the mayor's salary to the commission, but that did not come up. So I will not be supporting this item for now. That may not be in my best interest in the long run. However, that's how I feel at the moment. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on the item? Councilmember Fields?
I guess I would ask through the chair if Councilmember Anderson has a motion to either refer it to committee or make an amendment. If not, that's fine, but
I don't.
sort of beg the question.
But if I wished to do that, I would have. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments on this item? Seeing none, I'll read it into the record. Ordinance number 3166, an ordinance of the City of Redmond, Washington, amending the Redmond Municipal Code, including sections 238010 and 238020, mayor and council salary review, and sections 447020, 447030, 447040, 447050, and 447060, Redmond Salary Commission. This is a roll call vote, starting with Council President Kritzer.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye. No.
And that passes 6-1. Thank you. The next item A business is a staff report for Redmond 2050, Planning Commission recommendations for SEPA regulatory amendments and Overlake Neighborhood Plan addendum. Carol Helen, Director of Planning and Community Development, will introduce this item.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you. Good evening, Council. I'm Carol Helland, Planning and Community Development Director. And tonight, as part of the city's Redmond 2050 work, Planning and Community Development staff are presenting the Planning Commission's recommendation for updates to the State Environmental Policy Act, which we refer to as SEPA, regulations, and the Overlake Neighborhood Plan addendum. Staff is also recommending approval of companion updates to Chapter 13.20 of the Redmond Municipal Code concerning stormwater capital facilities charges in Overlake.
I'm sorry, can the audience members who are leaving please be quiet? Thank you.
The Planning Commission's draft report, together with exhibits and appendices, are provided in your packet.
Excuse me. I'm sorry, sir. You cannot be campaigning in our chambers. That is actually illegal. Sir, if you do return at some point, please do not campaign in our chambers. I'm sorry, Director Helland.
It's okay. The Planning Commission's draft report, together with exhibits and appendices, are provided in your packet. And the Commission's substantive discussion on these topics has concluded, but they will be taking a formal vote on the staff report tomorrow night, and they are expected to approve it. This recommendation is scheduled for incorporation into the full package of regulatory updates that will be presented to the Council in October prior to adoption, which is anticipated in November. Tonight, staff will summarize key components of the recommendations, and to do that, I'm joined by Becky Fry and Lauren Anderson to walk through the recommendations on these topics, and I'm going to turn the microphone over to Becky.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Director Helen mentioned, we've got three pieces to tonight's presentation. We're going to be providing an update to the SEPA regulations. That is a combination of work from Redmond 2050 and the Redmond Zoning Code rewrite, which is why Lauren and I are going to share. And then I'll be walking through the related pieces as well with the neighborhood plan addendum and the RMC updates. So tonight is an overview of those pieces of this particular package. We'll start with just an update on what is coming from 2170. As I mentioned, there's bits and pieces that go into this edit, but we're going to bring them together, so we're only editing 2170 once. So I'll turn it over to Lauren to explain the regulatory pieces.
Thank you. So the updates to 2170 are minor updates to procedures, including the following. So updating the timelines for review to be consistent with SB 5290 and the related changes to the Redmond Zoning Code 2176040, as well as updating categorical exemption thresholds to match recent changes in state law, as well as updating the definitions, document titles, and DEI-related language changes, as well as other minor procedural updates. And I will hand it back off to Becky.
So in addition to 2170, we're also updating the Overlake planned action. So the planned action is adopted in 2170. However, we are having to make an update to the Overlake neighborhood plan to be the foundation for that planned action. So this package includes both the SEPA regulatory updates and the related plan addendum that is supportive of that. It is essentially a cut and paste from other documents that you've already reviewed. We're not creating a new content, but we're taking the Overlake related content from the comprehensive plan, from the transportation master plan, from the water and sewer updates, and we're packaging it up together to create an addendum, and that will support our recertification of the Overlake plan through the regional planning authority. So as Lauren mentioned, some of the other pieces that are being updated are the categorical exemptions. So under state law, there are certain things that are not required to have an individual project level environmental review. Those are called categorical exemptions. So the state has recently changed that criteria, and they have upped some of the thresholds. So one of the things that they have added is a new smaller single-family housing categorical exemption, and they've raised the thresholds for multifamily. So we're adopting the state changes to categorical exemptions. As you recall, during the environmental impact statement process for the Redmond 2050, we are implementing the infill exemptions. There are three. There's the downtown infill exemption, Marymore, and then a citywide infill exemption. This chart lays out how we're referencing different sections of state law. So we're just laying it out in the 2170 what those infill exemptions are. So this is the implementing piece of a portion that you've already reviewed and approved through that other process. In the planned action, the update is just to match, again, what we've already reviewed. It is implementing the preferred alternative. So the 2050 growth allocations, updating the numbers, updating the mitigation requirements. I do want to also point out, though, that we're moving the mitigation requirements from 2170 to an Appendix 11. We've updated them a lot, and so they're really robust, and so we didn't want to weigh down 2170 with all the mitigation, so we moved them over to a new appendix. And we have called out and organized the appendix so that it has specific mitigation measures and performance measures. So we're taking a look at our existing code, where our code addresses the growth, and then the mitigation measures are above and beyond code. And as I mentioned, the Overlake Neighborhood Plan Addendum is required for recertification for the Overlake as a metro center. There's no new policies, there's no new mitigation, it's all been determined through prior review processes. But we do need to go for recertification, so the addendum is laid out so that it has the recertification requirements and then it has the information, requirements, information. So it should speed up the recertification review process. And also implementing Overlake, the Public Works Department has a couple of minor edits to the Redmond Municipal Code, where we are moving Overlake Village to a 100% impervious surface, matching the language for downtown. Then the stormwater requirements in RMC need to be updated just to match that change. That concludes our report. Thank you for your time this evening. I'll turn it back over to the mayor.
Thank you so much for that. So here's where we are. There's not, we do have a study session set aside, but it didn't feel like there was enough new information to merit a whole study session. So obviously, we still have it set aside, but if you have some questions for the staff or comments, we can take that. If you do feel like you do need the study session to go through this more in-depthly, that's fine. I don't think you need it, but that will be your judgment then. Are there any questions for our staff? Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you so much, and I'm in agreement that most likely a study session is not needed on this topic. But thank you so much, Becky and Lauren. I appreciate you being here tonight. I wonder if we could go back to the slide that shows the increased thresholds for the categorical exemptions. Yeah, this one. This is a pretty technical update. We are organizing and integrating decisions that have already been made through the council and the Planning Commission and all the work to date. I just wondered if we could take a second here and use plain speak to help the people of Redmond understand how the state, these are new thresholds from the state that we need to meet, but how doing so actually integrates with the vision that we're headed toward in our comprehensive plan. Could you tell that story in just a few sentences for us?
Sure, I'd be happy to. It's similar to the infill exemption process. What a categorical exemption allows is for the individual project level to not have to undergo and hire a consultant to develop an environmental review document. And so that is because we have done a citywide environmental review process. And so the categorical exemptions rely upon the existing regulations to address any environmental impacts. What that means is they don't have to spend the money or the time to do that review process, which makes that development a little bit faster and cheaper to produce.
Thank you so much. So I really appreciate how this is an example of the city balancing both its need to produce housing, for instance, and care for the environment, and how we've set that up to work together. And then on a more technical point for the council, of course, having code that is so much healthier than when we began this process. And that's one of the things I'm looking forward to going into next year as well. So thank you all for your work on this. I do not need a study session on this item. Thanks.
Thank you. Other questions or comments for the staff? Council Vice President?
Thank you. I'm probably in the same boat of not necessarily needing a study session on this. Really thorough documentation. Really appreciate that the links in the presentation went to the RCWs. That was hugely helpful for my own study. So I appreciate that you heard that and took that to heart and made that happen. Just wanted to say thank you for that. Also, just adding that I really appreciate the language changes to be more neutral. And, you know, many of my colleagues will recall that that was one of the changes that I pushed for in our own council rules to make sure that the language is more accessible for anyone in the community. And I just really appreciate that, that bringing that into this documentation as well. And then just became really clear while I was using those links and studying the documentation that the majority of this is due to state updates and just bettering our own code. So it's pretty clear to me that we're on the right track. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Council President?
Thank you very much for the presentation and work on this, and thanks to the Planning Commission for diving deep on this. Just in terms of the process, in case council members thought we would have a study session and might have some follow-up questions, I just wanted to suggest that perhaps next time we see another 2050 item, if there are any remaining lingering questions from folks after hearing some of the information tonight, perhaps similar to how we did with some of, I think, our last 2050 item where we kind of did a little follow-up. We could add this one on just in case anyone has any additional questions. That's all.
Thank you. I am not, any other questions from the council members on this item? I am going to anticipate that a study session is not needed on this. And if there are any follow-up questions, we can bring them into the next discussion that we have. But I think you all did such an amazing job with this. Thank you. Thank you. And with that, I guess the item is closed. Thank you so much. I appreciate all your work on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Our next item of business is Ombuds report for the month of April. We have Salahuddin, and then for the month of May, we have Nueva Camina. Would you like to complete April?
I would love to complete it. Had a lot of emails coming in, a lot of emails regarding the items from the audience, as well as the Permanent Supportive Housing, Plymouth Housing Project. There was also emails regarding Redwall styrofoam recycling, and it was specific to county rules versus what the city opportunities are, so helped a resident with that. Responded to an email regarding the East Lake Sammamish Trail connector and the walkway. That is a possibility that the city has been exploring there. Parking issues. There was a resident that was concerned with some inopportune parking in front of postal mailboxes by probably school-going young people. So looped in the police there just to see what might be that next step. There was a request for road repair and compensation for damages incurred on Novelty Hill Road, specifically in unincorporated county, King County in Redmond. Looped in our team there and relayed the resident to the county resources for reporting an accident there. There was an email that came in regarding graffiti and litter cleanup, homelessness outreach, and shopping cart and parking management specifically from the church off of Anderson Park, and addressed some of the concerns that they came with, and worked with them to direct them to reporting resources that the city has. And then just looping back toward the the first few items regarding the items from the audience questions, I did share out some discussion items from 2022, where this was discussed previously by council, specifically looking at what items from the audience looks like in other cities and other jurisdictions neighboring Redmond. And there was a whole host of different opportunities. And if residents want more information on that, I'd be more than happy to share that out as well from a previous discussion. And then just some meetings that I had. I met with the resident regarding the gun range in Redmond that I believe Council Vice President Forsyth and Councilmember Fields also met with, discussed opportunities to work together with the community and see what opportunities we can put forward to keep our community safe, but also addressing the concerns that the neighbors have had there. I met with Eastside Audubon regarding bird migratory patterns, and they shared some really exciting opportunities and ideas there. I joined an Arbor Day celebration with the mayor and Councilmember Stewart, and then I connected with Imagine Housing and met with the Eastside Housing Equity Coalition, both specific to housing opportunities in Redmond.
Councilmember Nueva Camina.
Thank you. And some of the same topics continue to roll in so far in the first week of May. Continued receiving input from our residents and as well as outside of Redmond on our public comment and items from the audience. Some that are very opposed the ideas of having any change to our rules, and others having great immense amount of support for it. There was an email requesting an update on a specific poster on a light pole by the library, seeing if Public Works was able to take care of that, so we're in discussion with that. More information or more questions around Plymouth Housing, and redirected to a PDF that's on the city's website that illustrates the timeline of the Plymouth Housing Redmond Engagement Development Timeline, as well as redirecting to our city's frequently asked questions page that can be found on our website as well. We have both input coming from support as well as concern, many of the concerns that we heard here this evening. Got to attend with many of my colleagues here on the dais the Senior and Community Center, which was absolutely wonderful, seeing so many people come out to both the ribbon cutting as well as the open house. Following that, we also saw a wonderful festival over for Cinco de Mayo at the downtown park, where we had an immense amount of community come out despite the rain. And so far, that is my ombuds for the week of May 1st.
Great, thank you so much. And I do want to thank everyone coming out to the opening of our Senior Community Center again. It was great to see everyone. Great to see you at Cinco de Mayo. I saw you dancing. I did not join, sorry. But it was also glad the rain got better by the afternoon. And I also want to thank everyone coming out to the opening of the 2 line. So we haven't had a business meeting since then. And if you haven't had a chance to ride it, take a ride on the 2 line. It's fantastic. I'm really excited that that's open. Other ombuds items, Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you so much. Yes, it's been an exciting few weeks here in the city of Redmond. So yay light rail, yay Redmond Senior and Community Center, and all of the staff who supported all of those items. Just absolutely huge milestones happening here in the city of Redmond. I also wanted to shout out to Centro Cultural Mexicano for putting on the Cinco de Mayo Festival. It was supported, of course, by a couple of our teams here in the city, Parks Maintenance and PD for sure. It was just as always, a really lovely celebration. We have all the health screenings going on at the same time. And I had a chance to meet artists, quite frankly, from all over the world, Mexico and Panama and Colombia. And it was just a really lovely family-oriented celebration. So I thank them for their work in kicking off festival season in downtown Park. A few other things, I toured the Plymouth Crossing in Eastgate with Council Vice President Forsyth. I attended the Arch Housing 101 event at the Together Center. That included participants who were council members and commissioners from Arch member cities. We did have one of our new planning commissioners, Adam Cole, was also in attendance. We heard from staff and board members about the current tools being used by Arch member cities to tackle affordable housing. And we also heard from the board, it was presented by the city manager from Kirkland. We heard about the board's strategic plan to build more affordable housing faster. So look forward for our council to hear from Arch more directly in the coming months about how we as a city can be a strong partner in that and can continue to be. I attended with Council President Kritzer a Redmond Elementary School intercultural night that we were both invited to by an enthusiastic member of the PTA, and as we learned, volunteer extraordinaire. It was a really lovely celebration. And I went on a group ride with some cycling enthusiasts in Overlake who wanted to discuss some infrastructure on both the Redmond and Bellevue side of the lines. So that was a great conversation. And I'm going to skip over a couple things that have already been mentioned and just say that I personally continue to have a lot of conversations on the role of permanent supportive housing here in our city, how that fits into our long-term strategy. And I want to especially thank those who've been reaching out to share their support, maybe to thank the council or to thank the city for continuing to work on affordable housing. I just really appreciate everybody who's continuing to share feedback of all types on this topic. So thank you.
Thank you. Other ombuds, I see Council President Kritzer.
Thank you. Like my colleagues, I have also been having a lot of discussions with people about our permanent supportive housing efforts in Redmond and a lot of different feedback. A lot of people visiting my office hours to talk about this topic and share feedback. Actually, yeah, also a lot of positive feedback in addition to concerns and actually have been sharing out information with people and found that the information has been received by a lot of people is really helpful. So, we'll continue to do that work and to share out to get more information and to strive to communicate even better on that. And then have been discussing, had some feedback from people around items from the audience and our proposed item on the topic tonight, some in strong support, some with questions and concerns. So that's also just been something that I've been in active discussion with people on. I won't double up, but got to attend a lot of the same events as many others, in addition to the Redmond Technology Station bridge opening, which was really wonderful. Great to have 2 new bike ped bridges now in our city, and just want to encourage everyone, both at the Overlake Overlake Bike Pedestrian Bridge as well as the Redmond Technology Station Bridge, to go use those. They're open. Use them to do your safer commute and see how they get connected into our safer infrastructure for biking all around. Looking forward to even seeing the expansion of that as we connected and build some more shared use paths throughout our city, especially funded by our Community Facilities District. Also, I also was able to tour Plymouth Crossing in a separate tour from the other ones that were mentioned, and it was really interesting to be able to see those facilities. And then just to note on the Senior Community Center opening, really amazing moment to celebrate with our council, with our community, with our staff who work so hard, but especially the residents. Just want to say thanks again to everyone for this incredible input. That helped to shape that project. And I already heard a lot of feedback on how it is running. And so I just wanted to note that I did ask the mayor that we put on an upcoming agenda, just a discussion about some of the kind of rates and charges and how it's going to work, especially for seniors. So hopefully we'll be seeing that. So we'll be able to get some more information where the council can ask some questions, and we'll be able to share that out even more with those who have questions, common FAQs that are coming up as we get that center activated. And just thanks again to our staff for the great work on that, and wonderful to be celebrating so many big milestones with our community in the last couple of weeks. Thanks.
Council Vice President.
Thank you. I guess I'll go ahead and start with a lot of the same conversations that our Redmond Senior and Community Center opening, Cinco de Mayo, light rail. Sounds like we all had a lot of the same topics covered. I also attended the Jerry Baker Velodrome Gala and had some great conversations with the cyclists there about missing connections between Redmond and Bellevue, and thought that may be a very good, potentially untapped resource for us to get some good feedback from those community members when we had some really in-depth conversations about some missing bike lanes on East Lake Sammamish. It gave me the idea that that's a group that we've not necessarily been talking with, so could be good for us to reach out to them. I had 2 separate conversations with folks who applied for boards and commissions and volunteer opportunities and had not heard back on anything. So have connected those folks with Deidre to hopefully get her to find some volunteer opportunities for them. Had a conversation about the gun club and a conversation about East Trail opening date, which I believe is in June, for the missing connection right now in Bellevue. Conversations about public safety, and took that permanent supportive housing tour in Bellevue with Councilmember Stewart. And I just wanted to note that she and I had a lot of interesting questions, as I'm sure everyone is accustomed to at this point. And one of the main differences that struck me is that we in Redmond have the most thorough code, and probably, I believe it was stated, the only code on the east side for permanent supportive housing, which was developed through conversations, through listening to public feedback. And the projects that are in Seattle do not have that same level of code and specificity for how the building is to be run. So we are actually leading the edge of how these projects get developed and how they maintain safe and productive and a good part of our community and keep our community safe and engaged. So that was definitely one of the burning questions that I had for the Plymouth Housing folks. And I was reassured to know that we have already done our homework in getting that code in place prior to the opening of that building in a couple of years. And that is all on my list. Thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate you sharing that information about how we do things in the city of Redmond. So thank you. Any other ombuds items? Councilmember Nueva Camina?
Thank you, Mayor, for coming back after I had already had the opportunity to speak. Before we get away from the Senior and Community Center, being a newer council member, I get to have the benefit of the celebration of it. But I would be absolutely remiss if I didn't take a moment and just to thank those that had gone before myself, to where they've done so much work for so many years to get this together. When I attended the opening and seeing so many of the folks that had been involved in this, whether it's former Mayor John Marchioni, former council members David Carson, former council member Tanika Padye, and their level of advocacy, the amount of all hands that came together to find solutions to obstacles that seem to just continue to come and come and come and come. And everybody just came together and aligned with the values and getting it done and making sure that the project was complete for the community. So I just want to say thank you to all of those that I get to enjoy the celebration, but definitely not a blind eye to the work that went before me.
Thank you. All right, are there any committee reports this evening? Council Vice President.
Thank you. I attended the East Trail RAC committee, and we were talking a lot about the parks levy that's going to be coming up for King County. It's time to revisit that in a little while, and it was really interesting to know that 80% of the King County Parks budget is via levy. So it's a very critical element. We talked a lot about micro-mobility devices. We looked at all of the cities along East Trail and the micro-mobility policies that are in place, and potentially looking at governing policy for the East Trail, still in conversation about that. And we also talked a lot about the jurisdictional rules around just the general trail usage and how to keep everybody safe on that. And there will be an upcoming budget ask for East Trail, as we usually do have. And also attended the First Tier Suburbs NLC committee meeting. I believe I saw Councilmember Salahuddin also in that meeting. So a lot of interesting things from around the nation as far as what first tier suburbs are doing. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Council President.
Sorry, I had an unmuting issue there. I attended the Puget Sound Regional Council Executive Board meeting, and we looked at the supplemental biennial budget. Didn't change a ton from the previous years, so but recommended that to go to the body, which will the whole PSRC General Assembly will happen on May 30th, and all council members and the mayor are invited to attend that. So just wanted to remind council members that you can attend that, and that's an in-person meeting of all of those who are involved in the Puget Sound Regional Council. And at that, they'll be electing leadership for the upcoming year. And then secondly, we had a really interesting presentation from Representative Jake Fye and Representative Joe Fitzgibbon talking about the Climate Commitment Act and what they've invested the funding in, how it plays into a lot of the climate goals that we have across the state, but especially we had a discussion about what that looks like in particular in the Puget Sound region. And just wanted to highlight for everyone, since just in terms of the biennial budget that was passed last session and the supplemental budget that was passed this session, the total of Climate Commitment Act investments that have gone into our communities across the state have totaled $3.251 billion going towards things like transportation, climate resiliency, clean energy, agriculture, sequestration and methane, advancing environmental justice, and in particular, $924 million has been invested just so far in the original 2023 to 2025 budget in overburdened communities. And $155 million has gone specifically been designated for tribes. So those are just a couple of the things that we talked about with the Climate Commitment Act, but just discuss some of this. But also I was able to ask some questions about, what this looks like for cities like ours that got allocations in this supplemental budget. Would they be starting from scratch if it gets repealed? And they said yes, that basically anything that was included with the provision that if it was repealed, they wouldn't they wouldn't include the funding as that would happen. So anyway, just wanted to note that about the Climate Commitment Act. It was a very interesting conversation and to hear about the impacts in our communities thus far. And then secondly, I'll just note that the One Redmond board got to go on a tour of Microsoft's new campus area. And it was really interesting to be able to see a lot of the work that they've done to be able to make that campus carbon negative, I think, or carbon neutral at least, and to be able to see things like their geothermal heating facility and the accessibility efforts, and just to get a sense of what's going to be out there, as well as some of the places that will be publicly accessible on things like weekends and other types of things like that, and how it kind of fits into the rest of the infrastructure in Redmond. So would encourage folks, if anyone on the council are interested in being able to connect with them to see how that fits in within our city. Really interesting to join with some of our business leaders and other community leaders on kind of looking at that piece of work. Thanks.
Thank you. Committee reports. Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you. I will just add one more. Last week, we were not here at the dais. We were at our council retreat with the directors, and we got to work on and hear from the directors about their work on the plan for race, diversity, equity, and inclusion here in our city. And it was really great to see how robust that plan is coming along. So for those of us who were able to attend, that was a great conversation as well. Let's see. I attended the Growth Management Planning Board of the Puget Sound Regional Council. We are gearing up toward the end of the year to begin to review these comprehensive plans for the cities all around the region. And we had a briefing this time on racially disparate impacts in housing from Snohomish County. This was reviewing actual pieces of various covenants, various laws that had been on the books or linger on the books in some places, and the impacts that they make today in the city of Snohomish. Here in the city of Redmond, we have also studied this, and that was heavily influenced our housing chapter that went forward already. We also had an update on the industrial lands analysis that will be published later this summer, and we got a briefing on how the regional transportation plan update will occur in the coming year. Earlier this evening, our council had a committee of the whole meeting for planning and community development. We gave direction to add a new project to our capital improvement program, which will extend a shared use path on 156th Avenue Northeast all the way to 51st Street. We added it to the capital program so that we can accept grant money that was awarded that will be awarded to the city for that extension, and we'll vote to accept that at our next business meeting. We also have 2 staff reports that came through committee and will come back on May 21st. The first is a tourism strategic plan, and the second is the MGP 12 Overlake East Master Plan Development. On that date, we'll also vote to accept 3 grants that will help complete the Redmond Central Connector Phase 3 and make revisions to an agreement with WashDOT so that the city can be reimbursed for costs of great work that took place during the Overlake Access Ramp project at SR 520 and 148th. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Nueva Camina.
Thank you, Mayor. Last week on May 1st, I attended our disability board on the Redmond Disability Board. The disability board reviews disability claims brought forth by covered employees in the police and fire departments and makes recommendation concerning their resolution. We do meet on the first Wednesday of each month at 3:30 p.m. and both myself and Council Vice President Forsyth sit on that board. Last week, we approved the reimbursement for medically necessary uncovered miscellaneous medical supplies and over-the-counter medications in the amount of $1,438.
Thank you. Other committee reports? Councilmember Fields?
So last week, as you heard during the committee meeting, we had the LTAC meeting, and we're going to talk about that in a study session. One of the things that I wanted to point out to the council, which is not seen so easily on paper in black and white in a strategic plan or discussions or the words, is the spark and the imagination and the creativity of the people in our hospitality group who support this committee. And when we talk about light rail and we talk about the new senior center, they're thinking and leveraging the infrastructure and the assets and the values that we have in Redmond to fulfill the vision. And the vision at first said, all visitors feel welcome, and we changed it to all visitors are welcome. And, welcome to do what? And that is to come here and achieve dreams, whether it's in sports, technology, get-togethers, whatever draws Redmond, explore our amazing outdoor recreations. So I'm excited about what the direction that LTAC is going. I'm excited about the tourism. We're at a crossroads here, and I just really think it's important that council members understand that this is not, this is an imagination for our future. And I think it's really important work that we're doing.
Thank you. Any other committee reports? I don't have a committee report, but I wanted to share that I had the opportunity in the middle of all the fun celebrations to go to Washington, D.C. to lobby with a group of mayors from around the country for funding for both project vouchers and personal vouchers for Section 8, which is how many of our community members fund or are able to stay housed, as well as CDBG funds, community development block grants, which is also direct funding from the federal government that cities receive, which we do. And it was a great opportunity not just to talk to I missed the day to talk to the Congress people, but I was there the day to talk to different members of the Biden administration and cabinet members on the need for that. And also, in particular, the importance of the project vouchers that go with many of the projects within our city and make the financing whole for a lot of what happens. And then also the opportunity to go to the White House and talk to cabinet members there too. So it was a great opportunity. I got to show off a little bit of what Redmond's been doing and how we've been working with all of the tools that we have in order to keep and maintain housing for many of our community members. So really excited. I was really excited to do that, and I'm really excited to share Redmond's story with the rest of the delegation. So that was very cool. Any other committee reports? All right, seeing none, we have no unfinished business, but we do have a new business item. It's approval of revisions to the City Council Rules of Procedures, which we heard a lot about during items from the audience tonight. And the whole packet is in there. I do want to share that some of the comments from commenters, I think, were based not on what's currently in the packet. So I do want our community members to know that I feel what the council is taking a look at is actually pretty limited in the changes. It's actually much less restrictive than many of our jurisdictions around, as Councilmember Slahudi mentioned a few years ago when we were looking at this as well. We also brought in different rules of procedure for different councils. And in fact, what we're looking at is even less restrictive than what the King County Council uses to manage their public comment as well. So anyway, I just wanted to share that in thinking about some of the comments tonight. So with that, I will turn it over to the council. Is there a motion to approve? Councilmember Stewart?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Stewart, you moved it the first time, so let's.
Yeah, well, I didn't intend to move, but that's totally fine. What I actually wanted to add on to the mayor's statement was, again, just clarifying for the viewing public tonight, there was a prior version of our study that included some changes to the timing. That is not what is in the package before us for this evening. So that's actually why my hand was raised, just to clarify that for the viewing public.
Thank you. Other comments on this item? Councilmember Fields.
So I have a question and then a comment. Well, two questions, really. The first question is based on what I'm reading, which says revised, and also what you, Mayor, and Councilmember Stewart said, that it's not what we've discussed in the past. I did try to get this clarified at our most recent study session when Council President said, do we need more discussion? And I said, well, I'd like to know where we're at. That would help me. And then I believe, Mayor, you committed to CO Files was going to provide a description of where we are at. Now I'm seeing it's revised. So the question that I have is, whose proposal is this? Did it come from the mayor's office, or is this council leadership?
This was council leadership, gave us the direction. We gave them a draft, they worked through it, they gave it back to us, revised it.
So council leadership from the most recent study session then got together and did the work between the two of them and gave this to you. That's the process that took place?
Correct, and it went through our city attorney.
Interesting. Okay, so second question is, under our current rules, campaigning is not allowed, correct?
Yeah, that is a state rule.
So if somebody came in and said, vote Republican, that would be campaigning, is that correct?
Correct.
And if they said vote Democrat, that would be campaigning.
Correct.
What if they came in and said, hello, my dirty Nazi Democrat friends, and they said Democratic for the past 40 years has ruined us and we have to stop it? Wouldn't that be campaigning?
That is not.
Why is that not campaigning?
Go ahead, Mr.
So the RCW, which I could pull up here in a minute, speaks to campaigning for a candidate or a proposition. And so general concepts are not a candidate or a proposition.
So we could come in, or somebody could come in and say, vote Republican, because that's not for a specific candidate.
I'm going to give you a lawyer answer. I'm going to say it depends on the situation. If it's a generic, in favor of Democrats, that's probably fine. But if there is a candidate or an election that is being referenced in that context, then it would not be fine.
So the testimony we heard tonight from Mr. Zimmerman, which says the Democratic leadership is ruining the state, would not be campaigning.
No, I don't view it that way. If he then pivoted to say, vote for Republicans in those elections that would be pending, and again, there has to be, it's not a conceptual candidate or proposition, it's one that's on a ballot.
Okay, thank you. All right, so my comment then, Mayor?
Please.
Council member.
Mayor Bernie, can I point of order?
Yes, I'm, you can have a point of order, but I think Mr. Fields needs to ask a question. Councilmember Fields. Go ahead.
I had my hand raised during the first questions in which you answered his questions inaccurately, and I would love to answer that before Councilmember Fields makes his comment, if he would prefer, but I don't need to.
What?
I think she's referring to the process of how this came about. I was doing my best to recollect it, but Council President, if you have a different recollection, go ahead.
And I'll ask Mr. Fields if it's all right for me to answer your question. I think
Sure.
Mayor Bernie didn't see my hand
absolutely.
when you had asked the question, so I just wanted to respond before you make your comments, just in case it's helpful. So just to be clear on the process, what we did, Council Vice President Forsyth and I, as well as looking with COO Files and Mr. Kenny, was look at the feedback that we got from the study session, as well as during our follow-up conversation from items during council talk time. And we looked at the feedback the council gave. Mr. Kenny and COO Files suggested some potential changes we could make for clarifications based on what the council had asked for. So for example, you'll see in there, there was a discussion about how we should follow Robert's rules, as we always do. And so for example, if a council member had a concern about a commenter, that they would do it through the chair. So you can see that being clarified in there, and that piece of the process aligning better to how we use Robert's rules for those types of things. And then similarly, we really only put things in that were the things that a majority of council were supportive of us taking a vote on tonight, and tried to kind of hone it down to the items that we needed to vote on. There were some questions, for example, also in the study session about whether we had to vote on the public participation guide, which is really just a publicly accessible document summarizing our rules. So that part is taken out because we don't actually, as a council, need to vote on something like that. If we vote on this, then later the public will be able to see that. So anyway, that's just an example, but it was tried to be pared down from all the ideas that were out there to the ones that the council was most interested in taking a vote on, and to provide clarity to everyone of exactly the only changes that will be made to our rules.
Thank you, Council President. That's an amazing amount of work for you to extract all of those random, disparate comments into something cohesive. And I suspect there was a bit of mind reading in there too. And I appreciate that. Thank you. So I'm going to vote no on this, and here's why. I was imagining, especially tonight, how difficult it is for people to come and speak to us. One of the old jokes that I make way too often when I'm with my wife is I introduce my wife and I say she's afraid of public speaking, and then I hesitate and then I say mine. But the reality is she doesn't like to speak in public, and I think a lot of people who come here are not comfortable speaking in public, but they're impassioned, and They come and it isn't just 3 minutes, it's hours of preparation, hours of sacrifice that they do to come and speak to us. And it's not them that benefit, it's us. I have learned so much, much more, in all honesty, about the concerns and the problems that we might face in our low barrier housing than I have from staff. And some of that stuff needs to be verified and validated. But I would argue that we are the ones that should have created that time and that discussion. And so when they come here and they bring their expertise and their experiences, we are better electeds. We are better representatives for it. And anything that, and I don't really care what other cities do. I mean, I care, but I think that we have a recipe in Redmond that is working. So we have one individual who comes here and calls us his dirty Nazi friends. I asked the city attorney way back in January at the beginning of the year, were we culpable? Were we liable if he is in fact slandering someone? And the answer has come back 2 or 3 times, no. And that was my primary concern. So if what he says is not outside the bounds of campaigning, and we understand that hate speech is in fact allowed in this country, then I don't necessarily have a problem with one person coming to Redmond City Council and ruining our day for 3 minutes at the cost of losing the trust of people who work their tails off to come and bring their thoughts and their experiences to us. So I'm voting no because we have processed this so many times, and there were some glimpses of concerns about the length of time it took to listen to public testimony. And there were glimpses of concerns about people bringing videos. I've never heard of a rule against a video. So it does in fact send a message that we don't want to hear from the public, and I don't want that message, to be sent. So I'm voting no, and I don't think that there's anything in the changes that we don't necessarily already have, other than potentially the city business part. But that also is such a loose area, and I'm not sure that we even know how to describe what city business is at this point. So I'm voting no.
Councilmember Salahuddin.
Thank you. And Councilmember Fields, I appreciate a lot of what you shared, and a lot of the reasoning for why you shared that is my reasoning for voting yes on this, because I believe that this public participation rules would not disallow any of what we've heard over the past couple of months related to Plymouth Housing and permanent supportive housing. I actually, on record, if you go back to that April 9th meeting, I was not in favor of reducing any of the time. I believe 3 minutes, everyone should have that time. I think not limiting any of the time with what other cities you mentioned, what other jurisdictions might or might not be doing. It's neither here nor there, but Redmond does have the most accessible, when we're comparing to these regional cities, public participation process. Specifically, there's no limits on times. You look at our neighboring cities, they're limited to 30 minutes, 20 minutes, and even 2 minutes of public comment time. So what we're doing here, I value what council leadership has put forward with regard to public participation. I want to call out the specific portion of, quote, public commenters may not provide any comments which would be considered incitement, fighting words, true threats, obscenity, or any other type of speech which is not legally protected speech under the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. I think that's really important to call out, especially as we're seeing a rise in anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, xenophobia, and making sure that we don't derail our residents coming to speak about important issues such as, permanent supportive housing and their perspectives, whatever they may be, to be hindered by folks coming in with other topics that are not relevant to, one, what the city residents and what our residents of Redmond really value and want to talk about, and also things that fall in line with that, hindering the rights of our residents that might be harmful. So for that reason, I am voting yes on this.
Thank you. I have Council President Kritzer, then Councilmember Anderson, then Council Vice President Forsyth.
Thank you. And really appreciate the words from my colleague, Councilmember Salahuddin. I just want to say that I'm going to be in support of this tonight, and I want to be clear as we take this vote that I personally love hearing from the public, and I'm committed to protecting our residents' First Amendment rights. One major reason why I wanted to serve on this council was to make our government more accessible to our diverse community, and I believe that these changes we're discussing tonight are actually designed to encourage that. After years of conversation of thinking about how to best approach this issue, looking at similar jurisdictions, as was mentioned earlier today, like the Port of Seattle, King County Council, other city jurisdictions that have put in some language to ensure that they're both transparent about their rules for public comment and that they make their council meetings more welcoming space for all, because everybody knows what the rules are when they come to speak. It does seem like the version was sent around that that had ideas we shared for consideration, and I just want to reiterate, I think it was already spoken about time. The version that we have before us doesn't change the amount of time people have to speak. It doesn't mention anything about clapping, and it wouldn't block anyone who spoke tonight from saying exactly what you shared. It just adds the specifics to ensure that people in Redmond can use the council meeting to talk about Redmond, and also to be transparent about what happens if people don't abide by the rules. I've had quite a few people come and ask me what happens, and I don't think that it's acceptable for us to enforce a rule that isn't actually written down. So that's what we're trying to do here, is just to make sure that it's clear to people what the rules are. And to be clear, under these rules, you can come complain about me, about us as a council. You can share whatever point of view you have on housing. You can come talk about a nice walk that you took on a Redmond trail. Basically, the only change of this Redmond business is that that now we're asking you to come talk about something in Redmond, and it only applies to comments not related to Redmond in terms of the restriction. And I just want to say, I do encourage the public to keep coming, to keep engaging with us. It's great to hear from you. Also, come to our community conversations happening in the summer. Come to our office hours. Email us to get a coffee. We're all really happy to hear from you and to connect. And I do hope that we can pass these rules, because some people have told me that they don't feel safe coming to this space. And I hope that this may help them to be able to join us, knowing that we have clear guidelines to govern our meetings. And while we actually can't stop all hate speech from happening, for example, that could be used when people come to talk about something related to Redmond, they know that we also put a section asking our community to not use hate speech or derogatory language. And we made it clear in our guidelines that our city is working to be a hate-free zone, and we ask our residents to join us. Thank you.
Councilmember Anderson?
Thank you. I will offer my humble opinion. A code of conduct establishing restrictions on audience behavior doesn't belong in council rules of procedure. I think it goes in the public participation guidance document that is maintained by operations staff. So in other words, I'm unclear why we have this part of our rules in the first place, other than for holding more orderly meetings. I'm very supportive of adding the proposed anti-harassment language to the guide.
Council Vice President.
Thank you. I think Councilmember Salahuddin summed it up very nicely in his comments. This is not meant to restrict anyone's First Amendment rights. It's clearly within the Section 1 of the public participation that your First Amendment rights are being upheld. The topic of keeping items pertaining to city business was intentionally broad, and we've even been advised by our city attorney that it can pretty much pertain to almost anything, and as long as the commenter can weave in some connection to the business that we do here within the city, this is a very, very broad topic. I don't think there was any comment that we've heard in the last many months, that wouldn't fall within city business. But we have had a lot of instances where we've been unclear if someone's comments were crossing the lines as far as the state code on what can happen within this building and within these chambers. And in my view, the work that we did here to address the many moments where we've had to pause and say, was that okay? It is outlined within this new document, and it's really just providing us the clarity that we did not have before to know if we were within the bounds of what is appropriate for the conversations that bound this space within our community. So we welcome you all to come and give your public comments. We want to hear from you. We know that it's a challenge to get to this space, to get here at 7 o'clock, to sign in before the meeting starts, to shake those nerves and come and say your piece and tell us what's on your mind. And we want you to continue doing that. We just needed to provide clarity to our own governing body to make sure that when something does happen, we have the rules in place that keep us in alignment with our values.
Councilmember Stewart?
Thank you. And Deputy Chief Coates, I'm so sorry. It's very distracting. Thank you. And I apologize if that was distracting for the Vice President. Thank you so much. The question I get most often from community on this topic is how we can allow this to happen. So on January 2nd, 2024, our first business meeting of the year, we saw some of the same behavior that was exhibited tonight, except on January 2nd, the speech was directed to about a council member in another city and attacked that person personally. And it inspired my colleague to request that we study this again for the third time in 3 years. And I'm glad that we studied it again for the third time in 3 years, because it looks like we'll be able to take care of this issue in large part tonight, so that we don't keep getting the question, how can we let this happen in our city hall? How can we continue to see this behavior? So we knew that these were the options going into the conversation about our rules, because we've studied them twice before. And we also know that items from the audience is not the only tool for engaging with the public and hearing feedback. For instance, some of us hold office hours. You heard about the many events that we have been participating in the last several weeks. We have a booth coming up at Derby Days. We have council cell phone numbers you can call us on, emails. Some of these tools are a little bit more commonly used, but items from the audience is not the only tool that we have. So I'm very supportive of the changes that are happening here tonight, so that we can be more accountable to the broader public. I also want to call out a special section here that isn't getting as much attention. It exists in our current rules and is offered for modifications slightly here tonight. But the intent of this tool, items from the audience, is for the community to communicate with the council and the mayor. And over the last few weeks, I've been a little bit uncomfortable with some of the speech directed at fellow members of the audience. As we've been discussing tonight, it takes a certain amount of gumption and nerve to come into this building, and I would just, moving forward, really like to make sure that we're encouraging folks to direct your speech at us. We're here to listen, but speech among one another or directed at our staff is not appropriate. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councilmember Fields?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate the comments from my colleagues on council. A couple of things just sort of entrenched my no vote. Two council members expressed concern that there are people who come to speak in recent months or weeks don't feel safe or don't feel comfortable or potentially have been attacked. Those are exactly the concerns, the openness of a council member or a meeting presider actually using that reason to then say you're not allowed to speak, and you're not allowed to speak for X period of time. I didn't I didn't hear before that that was a concern of the council, so I add it to the list. And my concern is this. A lot of these protections that we're talking about in this ordinance, many of them already exist. We certainly have the right, as pointed out, to do Robert's rules. So if there's a point of order question, we can do that. That's not, when I did that in January, the first meeting, I don't see that as disrupting the rest of the meeting. That was a momentary moment, and it was resolved quickly by the mayor and was resolved quickly by council leadership. So those things exist, those tools exist for us already. Part of the issue that I have is some of the descriptions on if someone changes their mind and wants to speak on another topic while they're here, or we're making it difficult for people to come and share their ideas. So I think that the protections are there, maybe not perfectly, but I also don't think that the risk is near as high as we make it out to be. And I am concerned, and I actually share some of the distrust that our community has expressed that that over time this will be used against them and free speech will be diminished. So I'm continue to vote no.
Any other comments on this item? Seeing none, this is a, once again, approval of revisions to City Council rules and procedures. There is a roll call vote, starting with Council President Kritzer.
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. No.
And that passes 5-2. Thank you all for the discussion. That concludes our business items for this meeting. If there's no objection, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. Have a great night.